Hi, everyone! You're watching Heartwarming Tales, your destination for remarkable life tales.
Ali reclined in her plush velvet chair, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the air as servants bustled around her. She glanced at Blake, who was engrossed in the financial section of the newspaper. Ali, have you thought about where we should go this summer? Blake asked, not looking up from his reading. I was thinking Bora Bora, Ali replied, slicing into a perfectly poached egg. Or maybe a private villa in Tuscany, something exclusive. Blake nodded, satisfied. I'll have my assistant check on the villa. Tuscany sounds perfect. Across town, Sarah was already up, the morning light streaming into her modest kitchen. She hummed softly as she prepared breakfast for her son, Henry. The table was set with simple but hearty food: oatmeal, fresh fruit, and a small glass of orange juice. Mum, can I help you with anything? Henry asked, his eyes bright with the eagerness of youth. Just sit and eat, sweetheart. You have a big day ahead, Sarah said, ruffling his hair. She enjoyed these quiet moments with Henry, cherishing the simplicity and warmth they brought. Ali's day continued in a whirlwind of opulence. She strolled through designer boutiques, her fingers grazing luxurious fabrics as sales associates fawned over her. At an exclusive lunch, she and her friends discussed the latest trends and upcoming charity galas, their conversations shallow but punctuated with laughter. Later, Ali drove her sleek sports car to a high-end spa. She spent the afternoon pampered by skilled hands, her thoughts drifting to the next social event she would attend. Sarah's day, in contrast, was filled with the bustling energy of a school. She moved through the halls with purpose, greeting each student with a warm smile. In her classroom, she knelt beside a young girl struggling with her math homework. Take your time, Emma, Sarah encouraged gently. Let's work through this together. Emma's face brightened with determination, and Sarah felt a familiar swell of pride. These moments, small yet significant, defined her days. That evening, the sisters' worlds subtly collided over a family dinner at their parents' house. Ali pulled up to her parents' house in her sleek, black Porsche, the engine purring to a stop. Stepping out, she smoothed her designer dress, adjusting her sunglasses as she surveyed the familiar surroundings with a faint air of detachment. The house, modest but well-kept, seemed smaller than she remembered. Inside, the house buzzed with the sounds of family chatter and clinking dishes. Sarah was in the kitchen, putting the final touches on a homemade casserole. Henry, her 8-year-old son, was helping by setting the table, his face lighting up every time someone complimented his efforts. Ali's here, someone called from the living room. Heads turned as she made her grand entrance, heels clicking on the wooden floor. Ali, you look stunning, her mother said, embracing her warmly. It's so good to see you. Thanks, Mom, Ali replied, returning the hug briefly before looking around. Where's Dad? He's in the backyard, grilling, her mother replied. Why don't you go say hi? Ali nodded, making her way through the house. She paused at the kitchen doorway, her eyes landing on Sarah, who was placing the casserole in the oven. Sarah? Still making that famous casserole, I see, Ali said, a hint of condescension in her tone. Sarah straightened up, wiping her hands on a towel. Yes, it's Henry's favorite. Ali glanced at the table, noting the simple dishes and the modest decorations. You know, you could save yourself a lot of time by just buying something from the store. Sarah smiled, her expression serene. I enjoy cooking. It's one of the things that makes holidays special for us. Henry ran up to Ali, his face beaming. Aunt Ali, look! I helped set the table. That's great, Henry, Ali said, patting his head lightly. You did a good job. Ali, why don't you join us in the living room? Her father called from the back door. We're about to start the barbecue. All right, Dad, Ali replied, heading outside. The family gathered in the backyard, the smell of grilled meat filling the air. They sat around a large table, laughter and conversation flowing freely. Ali took a seat next to Sarah, her eyes scanning the simple yet cozy setting. So, Ali, how's life in the fast lane? Her father asked, flipping a burger on the grill. Oh, you know, busy as always. Blake and I are planning a trip to Tuscany this summer, Ali said, her tone casual but clearly aimed to impress. That sounds wonderful, her mother said, eyes twinkling. Italy is beautiful this time of year. Yes, it should be. We're looking at staying in a private villa. Very exclusive, Ali added, glancing at Sarah. Must be nice, Sarah said, her voice even. Henry and I are planning a camping trip. Nothing fancy, but he loves the outdoors. Ali raised an eyebrow. Camping? That sounds rustic? It is, but it's also a lot of fun, Sarah said, smiling at Henry. We love spending time together, away from all the distractions. You could afford to take a real vacation if you wanted to, you know, Ali said, leaning back in her chair. I don't understand why you choose to live like this. Sarah's eyes met Ali's, calm and unwavering. I don't need a lot to be happy, Ali. My job, my home, my son, they bring me joy. That's enough for me. Ali sighed, looking away. I just don't get it. Why settle for less when you could have more? It's not about having more, Sarah replied softly. It's about appreciating what you have. The conversation shifted as their father called for everyone to gather around the grill. Sarah's words lingered in the air, a quiet counterpoint to Ali's constant pursuit of more. As the evening wore on, the family enjoyed the meal, sharing stories and laughter. Ali watched Sarah interact with Henry, her patience and warmth evident in every gesture. There was a contentment in Sarah's eyes that Ali couldn't quite understand. Later, as they prepared to leave, Ali found herself alone with Sarah in the kitchen. Sarah, do you ever think about what it would be like to live differently? Ali asked, her voice softer now. Sarah looked at her sister, a gentle smile on her lips. I used to, but then I realized that happiness isn't about living differently. It's about finding joy in the life you have. The sleek, polished surfaces of Ali's mansion reflected her frantic energy as she paced back and forth, phone pressed to her ear. The conversation was clipped and tense. Blake, we need to talk about these investments, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Blake's voice on the other end was equally strained. I'm aware, Ali. I'm meeting with the financial advisor later today. We'll sort it out. Ali ended the call and sank into the plush leather couch, her mind racing. The facade of their perfect life was starting to crack, and she could feel the pressure mounting. Days turned into weeks of turmoil. The opulent living room, once filled with light-hearted conversations and laughter, now echoed with the somber tones of emergency meetings and hushed discussions. Financial advisors came and went, their expressions grim. Ali Blake, one advisor began, flipping through a thick stack of papers. The situation is dire. The bad investments, coupled with Blake's recent business losses, have put you in a precarious position. I'm afraid you'll need to start liquidating assets. The words hung heavy in the air. Ali glanced around the room, her eyes landing on the grand piano in the corner, the crystal chandelier, and the paintings that adorned the walls. Each item now seemed like a ghost of the past, reminders of a lifestyle that was slipping away. We have no choice, Blake said, his voice tinged with defeat. We'll start with the cars, then the artwork. Ali nodded, feeling a lump form in her throat. The reality of their situation was hitting hard. She had always taken pride in their wealth, the luxury that set them apart. Now, It all felt hollow. As possessions were sold and the house emptied, the once vibrant mansion turned into a shadow of its former self. The spaces that had been filled with laughter and extravagance now echoed with an unsettling silence. One evening, Ali stood in what used to be her sanctuary, the master bedroom. The custom-made furniture, the designer clothes, the jewelry, all gone. She picked up a framed photo from the nightstand, a picture of her and Blake at a charity gala, both smiling and radiant. The contrast to her current reality was stark and painful. "Ali," Blake called from the doorway, his voice soft. "We need to talk about downsizing. The house, we can't afford it anymore." The weight of his words settled heavily on her shoulders. She looked around the room one last time, taking in the emptiness that had replaced their once lavish lifestyle. The sense of loss was overwhelming, not just of material things, but of the life she had built and the image she had maintained. The next morning, they met with the real estate agent. Walking through the mansion, the agent's enthusiastic descriptions of potential buyers felt like salt in a wound. After the agent left, Ali wandered into the backyard, the once pristine garden now slightly overgrown, a symbol of neglect. She sat on a bench, her gaze distant. For the first time she allowed herself to fully feel the depth of their downfall. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she didn't hold them back. Ali stood in the center of what was once her opulent living room, now stripped of its grandeur. The crystal chandelier had been sold, the expensive artwork removed, and the luxurious furniture replaced with basic pieces. She glanced around, feeling the weight of her lost fortune settle heavily on her shoulders. Blake entered, carrying another box of their remaining possessions. "This is the last of it," he said, his voice tinged with defeat. "We'll need to be out by tomorrow." Ali nodded, her pride warring with the reality of their situation. "I'll call Sarah," she said quietly, almost to herself. Blake paused, looking at her with concern. "Are you sure? You know how you feel about asking for help." "I don't have a choice," Ali replied, her voice strained. "We don't have anywhere else to go." The next day, with heavy hearts, Ali and Blake drove to Sarah's house. The modest home stood in stark contrast to their former mansion, its simplicity a reminder of how far they had fallen. Ali took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Sarah opened it, her face lighting up with a warm smile. "Ali Blake? Come in. It's good to see you." Ali forced a smile. "Thanks, Sarah. We appreciate you letting us stay." Inside, the house was cozy and welcoming. The scent of home-cooked food filled the air, and the sound of Henry's laughter echoed from another room. Ali's eyes scanned the small living room, noting the worn but clean furniture and the family photos lining the walls. "Let me show you to your room," Sarah said, leading them down a narrow hallway. The room was small but neat, with fresh linens on the bed and a vase of wildflowers on the nightstand. "This is nice," Ali said, struggling to keep the disappointment from her voice. "It's not much, but I hope you'll be comfortable," Sarah replied, her tone understanding. "Dinner will be ready soon. Make yourselves at home." As the days passed, Ali found it difficult to adjust to the simpler lifestyle. She missed her lavish meals and spacious home, and her frustration often bubbled to the surface. "Sarah, this house is so cramped," Ali complained one evening, "and the meals, they're just so plain." Sarah's patience never wavered. "I know it's different from what you're used to, Ali, but I think you'll find that simplicity has its own charm." Ali huffed, not entirely convinced. "I just don't understand how you can be happy with so little." Sarah smiled gently. "Happiness isn't about how much you have, but about appreciating what you do have." Despite her initial reluctance, Ali began to see the quiet strength and contentment in Sarah's life. She watched as Sarah helped Henry with his homework, the love and patience in her interactions, a stark contrast to Ali's own hurried and often distracted manner. One evening, after a particularly trying day, Ali sat at the kitchen table, her frustration palpable. "I don't know how you do it, Sarah," she said, her voice tinged with desperation. "I feel like I'm losing my mind." Sarah joined her at the table, her expression compassionate. "It's not easy, Ali, but it's worth it. Finding joy in the little things, in the everyday moments, makes all the difference." Ali sighed, her defenses slowly crumbling. "I don't know if I can do this. You're stronger than you think," Sarah said softly, "and you're not alone. We'll get through this together." Over time, Ali began to settle into the rhythm of Sarah's household. She learned to appreciate the simplicity of their meals, the comfort of a smaller, more intimate living space. She even found herself enjoying the quiet moments, the shared laughter, and the sense of family that permeated Sarah's home. One afternoon, as she helped Henry with a school project, Ali felt a warmth she hadn't experienced in a long time. The boy's infectious enthusiasm and Sarah's unwavering support began to fill the void left by her lost wealth. As the days turned into weeks, Ali's attitude shifted. She started to see the value in Sarah's way of life, the strength in her sister's patience and kindness. The initial tension between them eased, replaced by a growing bond of understanding and mutual respect. The morning light filtered through the small window, casting a soft glow on the modest room Ali now called home. She stretched, groaning slightly at the stiffness in her back. The bed was far from the plush mattress she was used to, but it was beginning to feel familiar. Downstairs, Sarah was already bustling about the kitchen, preparing breakfast. The scent of coffee and freshly baked bread wafted through the house, mingling with the sounds of Henry's laughter as he chatted with his mother. Ali descended the stairs, her expression a mix of determination and trepidation. "Good morning," she greeted, trying to muster enthusiasm. "Morning, Ali," Sarah replied with a warm smile. "I'm making eggs and toast. Want some?" "Sure," Ali said, taking a seat at the kitchen table. She watched Sarah move with practiced ease, her hands deftly handling the tasks that Ali still struggled with. "Do you need any help?" Ali asked, though she doubted her abilities. Sarah's eyes twinkled with amusement. "Actually, yes. Could you butter the toast?" Ali took the knife and butter, feeling slightly foolish at the simplicity of the task. As she spread the butter, she couldn't help but remember the days when she had staff to do everything for her. Later, as the day progressed, Sarah handed Ali a list of chores. "We need to clean the house and do some laundry. Think you can handle it?" "I'll try," Ali replied, though her confidence wavered. The next few hours were a series of small disasters. Ali struggled with the vacuum cleaner, nearly knocking over a lamp. She fumbled with the laundry, accidentally mixing colors and ruining a few items. Her attempts at cooking were no better. A simple soup ended up scorched at the bottom of the pot. Sarah watched with a mix of amusement and sympathy. "It takes practice," she said, helping Ali salvage what she could. "You'll get the hang of it." "Easy for you to say," Ali muttered, frustration evident in her tone. "You've been doing this for years." "Yes, and you're just starting." "Give yourself some time," Sarah replied gently. Days turned into weeks, and gradually Ali began to improve. She still had her clumsy moments, but each small success built her confidence. More importantly, she started to see the value in the work she was doing. One evening, as they sat down to a simple but delicious dinner Ali had helped prepare, She looked at Sarah with newfound respect. "I don't know how you do it, Sarah. Balancing work, Henry, and the house. It's exhausting." Sarah smiled, her eyes soft with understanding. "It's not easy, but it's rewarding. I've always believed that the little things matter. Taking care of my home, being there for Henry. It's all part of what makes life meaningful." Ali nodded slowly, her mind turning over Sarah's words. "I used to think that having more meant being happier, but I'm starting to see that's not true. There's a different kind of wealth in what you do." Sarah reached across the table, squeezing Ali's hand. "I'm glad you're seeing that. It's a lesson I learned a long time ago." Their relationship deepened as they shared these moments of honesty and vulnerability. Sarah's patience and kindness were slowly breaking down the walls Ali had built around herself. The tension that once defined their interactions gave way to a growing bond of sisterhood. Ali's daily struggles continued, but each challenge became an opportunity for growth. She learned to budget, finding satisfaction in making every dollar count. She discovered the joy of cooking a meal from scratch and the pride in keeping a home clean and welcoming. Henry became a source of light in her life, his innocent enthusiasm and boundless energy, a reminder of simpler joys. They spent afternoons working on school projects and playing games, building a connection that Ali hadn't realized she needed. One night, as Ali tucked Henry into bed, he looked up at her with wide, trusting eyes. "Aunt Ali, are you going to stay with us forever?" Ali felt a lump in her throat, her emotions raw and real. "I don't know, Henry, but I promise I'll be here as long as you need me." Henry smiled, satisfied with her answer. "I'm glad you're here. Mom says you're learning a lot." Ali chuckled softly. "I am. More than I ever thought possible." As she left Henry's room, Ali reflected on how much her life had changed. The adjustment period had been challenging, but it had also been transformative. She was beginning to understand that true wealth wasn't measured by money or possessions, but by the love and connections she shared with those around her. In the quiet of the night as she settled into bed, Ali felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. She was still finding her way, but for the first time, she was confident she was on the right path. The days had begun to settle into a rhythm at Sarah's house. Ali found herself gradually adapting to the slower pace, the simplicity of it all becoming more familiar, almost comforting. Her interactions with Henry had evolved from awkward attempts to genuine moments of connection. "Can you help me with my science project, Aunt Ali?" Henry asked one afternoon, his eyes bright with excitement. Ali smiled, setting aside her book. "Of course, Henry. What are we working on?" "It's a volcano. We have to make it erupt," he explained, his enthusiasm infectious. They spent the afternoon in the kitchen crafting the volcano out of clay and baking soda. Henry's laughter filled the room as they mixed vinegar and red food coloring, watching the concoction bubble over in a messy but spectacular display. "That was awesome," Henry exclaimed, his face lighting up with joy. Ali laughed, wiping her hands on a towel. "It was, wasn't it? You did a great job." These moments became more frequent, each one strengthening the bond between them. Ali attended Henry's school events, cheering him on from the sidelines. She marveled at his energy and curiosity, finding herself deeply invested in his happiness. One evening, as the family sat together after dinner, Sarah suggested they go through some old photo albums. The idea initially seemed trivial to Ali, but she agreed, curious to revisit their shared past. Sarah pulled out a dusty album from the shelf and opened it on the living room table. "Remember this?" she asked, pointing to a picture of them as children, playing in the backyard. Ali leaned in, a smile tugging at her lips. Look at our hair. What were we thinking? Sarah laughed. We thought we were so cool. Those were the days. As they flipped through the pages, memories resurfaced, each photo a snapshot of their intertwined lives. The laughter, the shared experiences, the silent support during tough times, all of it came flooding back. Do you remember the summer we built that tree house? Ali asked, her voice soft with nostalgia. How could I forget? Sarah replied. We spent weeks on it. You were so determined to have a secret hideout. And you were right there with me, making sure it was safe, Ali added, her tone thoughtful. Sarah nodded. We've always looked out for each other, even when we didn't realize it. These moments of reflection helped rebuild their bond, each story a thread weaving them closer together. Ali began to see Sarah not just as her sister, but as a friend and confidant. Sarah also started involving Ali in the community. It began with small tasks, helping out at school events, volunteering for local activities. At first, Ali felt out of place, her previous life of luxury a stark contrast to the grassroots efforts of the community. One Saturday, Sarah invited Ali to help at a local charity event. They spent the day organizing donations and serving food to those in need. Ali watched Sarah interact with everyone, her kindness and genuine care evident in every action. Why do you do all this? Ali asked during a quiet moment, genuinely curious. Sarah looked at her sister, her eyes reflecting a deep sense of purpose. Because it matters. Helping others, being part of something bigger than ourselves, it gives life meaning. In the weeks that followed, Ali became more involved. She volunteered at Henry's school, assisted with community projects, and started to form connections with the people around her. Each act of kindness, each moment of giving back, chipped away at the walls she had built around herself. Ali sat alone on the porch swing, the cool evening air brushing against her skin. The sounds of the neighborhood faded into the background as she lost herself in thought. The quiet moments had become her refuge, a space where she could sift through the remnants of her past and the emerging clarity of her present. She stared out at the horizon, the sky painted in shades of orange and pink. Her mind drifted back to the days when her life was dominated by luxury and status. The constant pursuit of more wealth, more recognition, more possessions had seemed so important then. Now it all felt distant and hollow. Ali sighed, her thoughts heavy with regret. She had been so focused on appearances and material success that she'd overlooked the deeper, more meaningful aspects of life. The arrogance she once wore like armor now felt like a burden, weighing down her spirit. One evening, Ali found herself at the local school where Sarah taught. She had volunteered to help with an after-school program, an experience that had become surprisingly fulfilling. As she watched Sarah interact with her students, she saw a side of her sister that she had never truly appreciated. Sarah moved through the classroom with ease, her voice calm and encouraging. She knelt beside a young girl struggling with a math problem, her patience unwavering. "Take your time, Emma. Let's work through this together," Sarah said, her tone soothing and supportive. Ali observed the scene, a profound realization dawning on her. This was what true dedication looked like: selfless, patient, and unwavering. Sarah's commitment to her students and her community was a far cry from the superficial pursuits Ali had once valued. That night, Ali couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned, her mind a whirlwind of memories and emotions. The realization of how misguided her past priorities had been gnawed at her, a persistent ache in her chest. She had to confront these feelings, to face the truth of her actions and their impact. The following morning, Ali found Sarah in the kitchen preparing breakfast. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the conversation she knew she needed to have. "Sarah," Can we talk? Ali asked, her voice hesitant. Sarah looked up, her eyes filled with concern. Of course, Ali. What's on your mind? Ali sat down at the table, her hands clasped tightly together. I've been thinking a lot about the past few years, about how I lived my life and the choices I made. I was so focused on wealth and status that I lost sight of what really matters. Sarah nodded, her expression softening. It's understandable, Ali. We all get caught up in things that seem important at the time. I was arrogant, Ali continued, her voice cracking. I looked down on you and your life choices, and I was wrong. Watching you with your students, seeing how much you care about them and the community, it made me realize how shallow my values were. Sarah reached out, covering Ali's hands with her own. It's not easy to admit these things, Ali, but what matters is that you're recognizing it now and making changes. Tears welled up in Ali's eyes. I feel so guilty, Sarah, for all the times I judged you, for all the things I said and did. I wish I could take it all back. Sarah squeezed her hands gently. Guilt can be heavy, but it can also be a catalyst for change. What's important is what you do moving forward. You've already started making a difference by being here, by helping and getting involved. Ali wiped her eyes, a sense of relief washing over her. Thank you, Sarah, for everything. I don't deserve your kindness, but I'm so grateful for it. Sarah smiled, her eyes shining with warmth. We're family, Ali. We look out for each other no matter what. In that moment, Ali felt a weight lift off her shoulders. The heartfelt conversation had deepened their bond, forging a new understanding and acceptance. She realized that true redemption wasn't about erasing the past, but about learning from it and striving to be better. As they finished breakfast and started their day, Ali felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was committed to embracing the values she had once dismissed, to building a life centered around love, kindness, and genuine connection. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, she felt truly ready to take it on. Ali's alarm buzzed at 6 a.m., pulling her from a deep sleep. She stretched and rubbed her eyes, feeling a sense of purpose that had been absent for years. The once reluctant tasks had become part of a new routine that filled her with a quiet satisfaction. In the kitchen, she brewed coffee and started breakfast, enjoying the simplicity of the morning rituals. Sarah joined her, surprised to see Ali up and about so early. "You're becoming quite the early bird," Sarah remarked, smiling. "Turns out, I kind of like it," Ali replied, flipping pancakes. "It gives me time to think and get things done." After breakfast, Ali joined Sarah at the school, where she had begun volunteering regularly. She helped with lesson plans, assisted students with their work, and even led a few activities. The children had grown fond of her, and she found herself looking forward to the time she spent with them. "Ali, can you help me with this math problem?" a student named Emma asked, holding up her worksheet. "Of course, Emma. Let's see what we can do," Ali said, sitting down beside her. She patiently walked Emma through the steps, celebrating each small victory with her. Sarah watched from across the room, a proud smile on her face. Ali's transformation was evident, not just in her actions, but in the lightness that had returned to her demeanor. Outside of school, Ali immersed herself in community activities. She joined Sarah at the local food bank, where they sorted donations and prepared meals for those in need. Ali's organizational skills, once reserved for managing a luxurious lifestyle, found a new purpose here. "You've really taken to this, haven't you?" Sarah commented one afternoon as they packed boxes of groceries. "I have," Ali admitted. "It feels good to do something that actually matters." The community began to notice Ali's efforts. She was no longer seen as the out-of-touch sister, but as a valuable and caring member of their circle. Invitations to participate in more significant roles within community events began to pour in. "Ali, we're hosting a charity auction next month," said Mrs. Thompson, a long-time community leader. "Would you be interested in helping us organize it?" "I'd love to," Ali replied, genuinely touched by the offer. "Thank you for thinking of me." At the auction, Ali's dedication and hard work shone through. The event was a success, raising substantial funds for local projects. Community members expressed their gratitude, their words of appreciation, reinforcing Ali's sense of belonging and purpose. "Ali, you've done an incredible job," Mrs. Thompson said at the end of the evening. "We couldn't have done this without you." "Thank you," Ali replied, her heart swelling with pride and humility. "I'm just happy to help." Back at home, the changes in Ali were evident. She found joy in simple tasks, cooking meals, gardening, and maintaining the house. Each chore, once a begrudging necessity, had become a source of fulfillment. One evening, after a long day of volunteering, Ali and Sarah sat on the porch, sipping tea and watching the stars. "You've really turned things around, Ali," Sarah said softly. "I'm so proud of you." Ali looked at her sister, gratitude and love in her eyes. "I couldn't have done it without you, Sarah. You showed me what really matters." Sarah reached over and squeezed Ali's hand. "We're a team. Always have been. Always will be." Ali smiled, feeling a profound sense of peace. The journey had been challenging, but it had also been transformative. The house was filled with the sounds of laughter and the aroma of home-cooked food. It was a family gathering, much like the one months ago, but this time everything felt different. Ali looked around, a sense of fulfillment washing over her. She was no longer the detached, materialistic woman who had arrived in a flashy car. Now she was a part of this close-knit family, contributing and sharing in their joy. "Ali, can you help me with the salad?" Sarah called from the kitchen. "Of course," Ali replied, rolling up her sleeves. She joined Sarah, and they worked side by side, preparing dishes for the feast. Henry darted in and out, his laughter filling the room. "Aunt Ali, can we play that game after dinner?" he asked, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. "Absolutely, Henry. I've been looking forward to it," Ali said, ruffling his hair. The family gathered around the table, the spread of food a testament to their combined efforts. As they sat down, Ali felt a wave of gratitude. She had come full circle from a life of isolation and superficiality to one of connection and purpose. "So, Ali, how's the community work going?" her father asked, his tone warm and proud. "It's going really well, Dad," Ali said, her voice reflecting her genuine enthusiasm. "We've got some great projects lined up, and I've been learning so much. It's incredibly rewarding." Sarah looked at her sister, her eyes shining with pride. "Ali has become a key part of our team. We couldn't do it without her." Ali blushed, but her smile was wide and sincere. "I've found something I truly love doing, and it feels good to be making a difference." As the meal progressed, the conversation flowed easily, filled with stories and laughter. Ali felt the bonds of family tighten around her, a comforting embrace that she had longed for without even realizing it. After dinner, Ali and Henry set up the board game in the living room. The whole family joined in, and the room was soon filled with playful banter and competitive spirit. Ali found herself laughing freely, her heart light and her mind at peace. Later, as the evening wound down, Ali and Sarah stepped outside to enjoy the cool night air. They sat on the porch swing, the same place where so many heartfelt conversations had taken place. "You've really changed, Ali," Sarah said softly, her tone filled with affection. I'm so proud of you. Ali looked up at the stars, reflecting on her journey. It's been a long road, but I'm glad I found my way back. You were right all along, Sarah. True wealth isn't about money or possessions. It's about love, family, and finding fulfillment in what you do. Sarah smiled, her eyes glistening with emotion. I'm glad you see that now, and I'm even happier that you're here with us. I'm not going anywhere, Ali said firmly. I've found my place, and I want to keep making a difference, working with the community, being part of this family. It's where I belong. The two sisters sat in comfortable silence, the night wrapping around them like a warm blanket. Ali felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that she had finally found her true path. As the days turned into weeks, Ali continued to immerse herself in community work. She took on more responsibilities, her confidence growing with each new project. The recognition from community members only strengthened her resolve to keep giving back. One afternoon, while helping organize a charity event, Mrs. Thompson approached Ali. You've done an amazing job, Ali. We're so grateful for your dedication. Thank you, Mrs. Thompson, Ali replied, her heart swelling with pride. It's been a team effort, and I'm just happy to be part of it. In the quiet moments at home, Ali often found herself reflecting on her journey. She thought about the days of luxury and excess and how empty they had ultimately felt. The simplicity of her current life, filled with love and purpose, was infinitely more fulfilling. She had discovered that true happiness lay not in the accumulation of wealth, but in the connections and contributions that enriched her soul. As she stood beside Sarah and Henry, looking out at the vibrant, caring community they had built together, Ali knew that she had found her true home. And with that realization came a profound sense of peace and contentment, the promise of a brighter tomorrow shining brightly in her heart. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching Stories. You know, I truly believe that God always blesses those who are kind and good-hearted. Everything happens for a reason, and sometimes the struggles we face are just part of the path to finding true happiness. Finding love, purpose, and the joy in everyday moments. And when we open our hearts and minds to these blessings, happiness will come. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might need a little inspiration today. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss out on more uplifting stories. Thank you for being part of this community. Remember, happiness is within reach for all of us. Stay blessed and see you in the next video.